I was thinking to myself, there's no chance that I get this job. Why would they want me?
This is Jacob Davis, a 27-year-old pro goalkeeping coach from Franklin, Massachusetts. He's worked with the MLS academies, won the hardest conference in all of college soccer, and now just signed with one of the top clubs in the Canadian premiership.
It felt like I won the World Cup. It was mental.
But how on earth did Jake dominate the past?
Don't do it all in one day. I didn't know how to work.
And what's the secret behind his mentality?
The data's old. The game is moving forward.
And so in this interview, we will learn about his story to working in professional sports, uncover the challenges of your everyday goalkeeper, and find out what actually makes him so successful. What was life like growing up for you?
Yeah, life growing up was soccer for me. My mom ran a soccer league. My two older brothers played soccer, and I started playing soccer from the moment that I could walk. I played other sports, but I was no good at any of them. It's actually a funny story. I was maybe 12 years old, and my team was winning by a lot. And my mom was the coach, and she was like, Jake, no more scoring. We were up 15-0 or something like that. So
oh, wow.
It probably shouldn't have happened. And I scored again to make it 16-0 or something like that. So my mom's like, all right, you're going in goal. I absolutely loved it. I was just diving around in the mud. And from there on, I loved playing in goal.
Who inspired you? Essentially, who was your inspiration growing up?
I had this goalkeeper coach, Tim Felth. He was a principal. I was in awe of him. I was like, I want to be a principal. I want to be a teacher. I want to be a goalkeeper coach. He was fundamentally the best person I've ever met in my life. He's really good at his job. He created the best atmosphere for us. We had a small group of guys who would train. I trained with him from the age of 10 to 18. He changed my life for sure.
And what about professionally? If you were to pick one goalkeeper to that?
Growing up, I would say Casillas, because he was a little bit smaller and I was smaller. And then in the modern game, I think Ederson is top class. Watching what he does with the ball right now is amazing. But then also to see that he comes up with massive saves. He's not just good with his feet. I would say those two for sure.
I know you initially started with the New England Futsal Academy. What was different from coaching futsal versus an 11v11?
So the futsal game, really fit me well as a player because again, I was smaller. I was really good with my feet. That was just a passion of mine. In terms of the difference between the sports, there's a lot of intricate details, but in terms of learning to coach, it's the same. You've got a group of kids, you got to take them from one place and you got to make them just a little bit better. So Mass Youth Soccer was really good for me because it was a program that oversaw the entire state. I didn't really love what I did, but I learned a lot. I got there and one of my first days, I had this task of registering all the players. And there's thousands of names, thousands. I was doing it for 5 hours and they're like, Jake, you got to go home. Don't do it all in one day. But I didn't really know, I didn't know how to work.
Was there any challenges that you came across throughout your entire college experience?
UMass Lowell was a Division I school close to home. It really made a lot of sense. And I went there and I didn't play. I was the backup goalkeeper and I was really unhappy with it. I was traveling every weekend for the games, knew I wasn't going to get in. My grades were slipping because I wasn't happy. So I made the decision to leave. King University is the exact opposite of UMass Lowell. It is middle of the nowhere, Tennessee, not a lot of people. I didn't know anybody. I was there for 3 years and honestly, I loved it. But again, I had my challenges there too, I broke my hand, I hurt my knee, and I got knee surgery. So again, injuries there kind of made things hard. But in terms of life, in terms of experiences, I think it was great for me.
Springfield Demize Soccer Academy?
There was this club that was semi-pro. It was a lot of fun. And I was only there for a few months, but I coached in the youth setup. I played in this pro indoor league, which was a lot of fun. Once I was done with school, it was time to move back home. I was coaching with Assumption. I was 20 years old and I was coaching players around the same age as me. So that was a challenge for me, but it was really good for me.
And in terms of the New England Revolution, how was your time there?
My time at the Revs was good. It was about experience. It was about learning. I was an admin type person. I ran camps. I did equipment. That was a really good job for me.
And then I know you also spent some time in Connecticut with Hartford Athletic.
I feel like Hartford was a step up from all those, and it was a challenge because you're working in a pro environment, you're working in a first team, you're held to a high standard. standard. So the head coach, Harry, there, he's one of my best mates right now, and he's the best coach that I know. He holds everyone around him to a world-class standard. You're not going to get to that. I'm not world-class, but I have to strive to be. I learned that from him really early on, that it's all about the players. That would be the biggest difference. In that environment, it's all about the players. All about how can you make the players ready to win the game on the weekend. Because if not, like, you're not going to have a job.
Do you know like what like their training schedule was?
Usually we trained at 10 a.m. The players would arrive for breakfast at 9 a.m. And like Harry and I, we had this competition who could show up the earliest. I didn't win many times. He was there like 6:30 in the morning. He was set up the field, make sure everything's perfect. Sometimes I'd get in at like 7 a.m. thinking I'm the first one. He'd already be set up, drinking his coffee. He's been there for an hour. I'm like, how? Like, this guy doesn't sleep. But the daily schedule, we would have a meeting at 9:30. I would typically run that meeting, just kind of like going over either like the previous game or like the upcoming game. We would then train at 10, usually off the field by around noon, and then we would have lunch together, and then we would go back to the office. That would be a typical day.
And was there any games that stuck out with Hartford?
We played Tampa Bay away. It was a massive game. They were all over us. We were defending for our lives. We scored a pretty good goal, actually, and we're 1-0 up. The game is messy. The game is start-stop. We're wasting time. We're doing everything that we can. We're pulling out every trick. I think the referee adds about 12 minutes added time. It was mental. For those 12 minutes, the ball like did not leave our half of the field. But again, we were throwing bodies, like the goalkeeper was clearing off the line, and we win that game 1-0, and it felt like I won the World Cup. It was the best feeling in my life. It was the hardest 90 minutes that I've ever faced. And then we had played Red Bulls at home. They had a first team game on the Friday or something like that, and then they played us on Sunday, I think. The first team guys who didn't get a lot of minutes all played down with the second team. There was like 8 first team guys like in the starting lineup, and we're looking at the team sheet like, holy crap, we might get beat here. And the first 20 minutes, they've killed us. Like, they've hit the crossbar, they hit the post. We score on the counter, and like something changes. We go on to win 7-0. We scored from midfield. Like, there were some brilliant goals. So I'd say those 2 games, they kind of felt different for sure. UVA was great. I had gotten this call if I wanted to go like interview for the job there, and I was in Massachusetts at the time. I was 22 years old. I was thinking to myself, there's no chance that I get this job. Why would they want me? And I tell this story all the time. I had my first interview, and it was horrible. I've never had a worse interview. The head coach, he was at the World Cup at the time, so he had a friend that kind of knew like the industry, vet maybe like 5 or 7 people, and like I was one of those 5. It was the worst interview I've ever had. Like, the guy I was on the phone was like, why would you get this job? You have no experience in like the women's game. You're 22 years old. You haven't worked at like the highest levels. And I had no answers for the guy. I was just like, you're right. What do you want me to say? I don't. But for some reason, they gave me the job. They flew me out. I worked at camp. I got on with the staff really well. And the goalkeepers there were phenomenal. The experience there was great because you went into every game knowing that, one, you should win, but you also need to win. So it was a great challenge for me there of how to try to be world class. Like, you're gonna fail on the way, but as long as you're striving to try to get there, you're gonna probably end up at a pretty good spot. COVID in general impacted us only because we tested like 3 times a week. We would do meetings outside. I think there's gonna be some things in life that are gonna make things hard, and you're just gonna have to find a way to make things work. I was in charge of everything from the under 13s to the under 15s. My role was kind of in the middle of all those things.
I know now you're with Cavalry FC. I know you haven't really started just yet, but I know you're looking forward to it.
It's an exciting league. I've been here for about 3 weeks now. Kind of hit the ground running. We had an away game against what was then top of the table team. It was a massive away win. We beat them, came back at home. We won at home. We went on the road again. So it's been a crazy couple weeks. Now we're sitting here, top of the table, really feeling good.
So what is the process or the steps for someone to get a license?
US soccer is kind of changing the way that they do things. Before, it was all like in-person meetings, and it was just like a bit expensive. They've kind of realized that, and now they've made it online. Like, at the start, it's something that you have to do. I don't think you're gonna change as a coach because of a license that you do. It's not gonna make you a better coach just because you have like a B license. Those things courses aren't going to make you better, but it's about taking 1 or 2 things from each course, and then that's going to make you better. It's a long process, but I think it's worth it for sure.
What was your proudest moment in your career so far?
At Virginia, there was a lot of moments that I felt proud. We won the ACC in my second year there. That was probably the proudest moment at the time. It was a great feeling. I think the ACC is probably the most challenging conference, so to win it was great. But then our goalkeeper then got drafted, and I think that was then my proudest moment. I had worked with this goalkeeper for 3 years, and then she was ready to then step on and sign a pro contract.
What are the top 5 goalkeeping secrets or best tips?
The mindset is probably the most important. Positioning is what you should work on a lot to stay focused throughout the game. You might not have to do anything for like 90 minutes, and then you've got to come up with a big save at the end. To be good with your feet, because that's super important. And then everyone makes mistakes. You're never going to go throughout a season and not let in a goal. A striker is going to miss 1,000 chances a season, and they're not going to get yelled at. But if you let in 1 goal, that's unfair. So,
and then now the 3 best goalkeeping drills or like non-negotiables.
I would say crossing, so to be really good in the air, building from the back, being really good with your feet, so just simple exercises, 2-touch passing. And something that I say a lot is that you have to make the game look simple. Third one, I would say reactions, fast twitch kind of things. At the end of the game, the ball takes a little nick, you're going one direction, can you then come back and make the save?
What is one thing all coaches can do better with their players, and how would they get better at that idea?
Most coaches could improve on is knowing all of their players, because everybody is different. They might need to be spoken to in like a different way. They might need to be like pushed in a different way. And every player, every person comes into the day with some sort of incident that's happened to them. That could have been something in the morning, something last night, because if you just generalize the team, I think you're being unfair. So really getting to know each player. And you know how you do that? You have to take the time. You have to show that you care. You have to go to lunch with people. You have to go on walks with people. You have to see them outside of the soccer field. You have to be like vulnerable, because if they just think that you're this stone wall, that's not who you are. You have to be vulnerable with people.
In general, how important is height for a goalkeeper?
I would say the data shows the top level you have to be tall, but in my eyes, the data's old. The game is moving forward. Just because previously it's been like that doesn't mean in the future it has to be like that. What I want to show is that just because you are a little bit shorter doesn't mean that you have to stop playing the position. If you love the position, just keep doing it. Height is important, but it's not the end all. If you have other qualities, then it's no problem at the end of the day.
What is your philosophy on goal kicks and distribution?
I would say you have to play what the game gives you. There's certain teams that are going to build out no matter what, and there's certain coaches that are going to kick it long no matter what. And for me, neither answer is right nor wrong. You have to play what the game gives you. So where the space is, and then they have to have the quality to then find those passes.
Do you have a strategy for stopping a penalty kick?
For me, there's 2 or 3 ways to kind of go about it. You could go off like the data. You could say, okay, this he's went to his right 5 times out of 6. He'll probably go there most times. Or you could guess, okay, I think he's going this way. But the biggest tip that I would say is just to stick with your gut. Don't change halfway. Once you have a read on it and you're going, just go. Just fully commit to it. If you go halfway, you're never going to make the saves.
What is the one piece of advice you'd tell the next generation of goalkeepers, or even just players in general?
I would say to be a student of the game. The game is moving forward so rapidly, and we have a lot of resources. You have to use them. You know, you have to be a smart player because the game is improving. So for the next generation, I would say use all the resources that the world is giving you and become the smartest player possible.
A massive thanks to Jake, as I wish you the best in your coaching career. And please drop a like on the video, because if it wasn't for him, this video wouldn't be possible. But if you want to watch more, check this interview out.